What job is guaranteed to get you laid? Story 1. When I started bartending, I had no idea how much women were going to throw themselves at me. I would never sleep with a drunk woman, but I've got a shit ton of numbers and several hookups just because I can pour a drink. Story 2. When I was in college, the house across from me set an oven out by the curb with a sign that said, free. After a few days of sitting there, a few friends and I brought it into our yard, put a sign that said $10, and it was gone within the hour. Story 3. When I was a kid, our cat had kittens. 6 of them. After 6 weeks, we put out a sign by the road that said kittens free. After 2 weeks, they hadn't moved. We changed the sign to say kittens, $1. They were gone by dinner to 6 separate people. There's something magical about saying you got it for $1. I hope someone named the tabby George Washington. Story 4. When I worked as an officer on a cruise ship in my 20s, it was laughably easy to get laid if you wanted to. Officers had privileges that some other crew didn't and wanted access to. Most teams had shared cabins below the decks with bunk beds. I had a window in my house and a large bed. Throw a ton of young people living in close quarters who may never see each other again into the mix, and it doesn't get much more accessible. Story 5. I'm just a lowly internal medicine doc, but the number of women throwing themselves at me mere days after I was widowed by cancer was seriously off-putting. Like, my wife's grave was still bare dirt, and my small kids were in literal hell, and sleeping in my bed every night. And you want to send me suggestive texts and noodles? What kind of monster are you? Instantly disqualified. Story 6. I received a heart transplant 8 years ago, and my transplant surgeon was as different as they came. He came to check on me a couple of days after the surgery, and I was transfixed by the cardboard iPad holder my wife had made for me to use while in the hospital. He truly felt it was genius and should be made into a product. In fairness, my wife has a fine arts degree and is crafty as hell, but to the level of impressing a man who replaces hearts could be argued. He was an odd man. Story 7. I wonder how much of it's about the work and how much about the fact that surgeons have one of the highest rates of sociopaths and low empathy workers. Understandably, as the job stress is overwhelming, their confidence in speaking in social events is they're less fearful of the awkward and embarrassing situations that might follow. Story 8. One patient was involved in a bad car wreck, and we were worried about abdominal issues. So after she gets trauma naked, she somehow thinks it was us hitting her. So trying to assess her abdomen and stuff was awkward while she asked you to finger her. Story 9. My cousin is a funeral director / mortician in our small hometown. He said it's way more common than you realize, for the deceased family will hit on him quite a bit. He's always kept everybody up on something, but he has offered people do strange stuff when grieving. Story 10. I've had women at the airport / hotel / female Uber drivers flirt with me openly. An Uber driver once called me after my trip using the Uber feature. When she hit her number, she gave me her actual phone number and told me to hit her up when I returned to her hometown. People don't even look at me when I travel without the uniform. I'm just a regular-looking dude, but something about the uniform makes my attraction go up. Story 11. My friend, one of the most beautiful women, told me she plowed some 300-pound dude because he was in a band playing at our local music hall. I saw his photo. I see her. She one-night stands because musicians are sexy. I almost slept with one too, but he's married, and I put the kibosh on that shit. Story 12. When I was 18 through 22, I worked as a car wash attendant and got much play, mostly from Peruvian and Puerto Rican women in East Hartford, Connecticut, when I used to live there. I got fired for having sex with this little kid's mom in one of the wash bays after I gave her a bunch of free washes every week. I probably lost the company close to $28,000 for the entire time I worked there, giving washes away to hot chicks. Best minimum wage job I've ever had in my life. You give free washes away to pretty girls. They pull back around and thank you. They'd give you a card with their phone number, and it was on. I miss those days. Story 13. As a fireman, I've been outside with a confused group of office workers on multiple occasions and overheard conversations with the lady folks swooning as the firefighters turned up and entered the building. Story 14. Being a software developer works well for me, but one of the jobs that I didn't expect to have actual groupies is firefighter. A wise man once said, women love danger, so if it were possible, they would just date a fire. Story 15. Male nurse. As a student nurse, I made friends with all the girls in my course and slept with their friends. They were gateways to new social circles. It was widespread that at parties / social events in the student accommodation, the women outnumbered the men 10 to 1. As a nurse, I slept with women in every ward / care home I've worked in. You work primarily with women, make friends, and always meet new women. All that female contact teaches you an awful lot. Story 16. A surf instructor. Well, any physical job where you show care in helping others achieve a task they were nervous about. Surfing is a good one since you can wear few clothes. Bonus if you're near a resort. Story 17. Became a career firefighter around 4 years ago. You always hear that women love firefighters, but holy shit, it's comical how attracted a woman gets to you when she asks what you do, and find out it's this. Honestly, don't understand it. Story 18. As a former indoor skydive instructor, there's just something about being the calm, secure rock in a high-intensity adrenaline-inducing experience, while wearing a skin-tight aerodynamic suit and being fit that gets women's attention. Story 19. I was an anatomist. I cut dead people up into predetermined parts for scientific research. Then I cut up and sent people's parts to the four corners of the earth. The number of women who wanted to get with me after telling them what I did was both concerning and astonishing. Story 20. As a private trainer/coach, you get paid sometimes by young women to help them get fitter. If you look aesthetic and you're confident, it's pretty easy to have some at-home cardio. Cooks, be confident and tell them that you make the best food in town. Then arrange a date where you cook dinner and watch a movie after. Food that goes with wine is a game changer. Story 21. An 80-year-old millionaire is sitting at the bar and looking over at this attractive young lady at the other end. So the guy turns to the bartender and asks, "What do you think my chances are with her?" The bartender looks down the bar, then turns to the old guy and says, "Where there is a will, there is a way." Story 22. I worked for Budweiser as a summer job and oversaw festivals around a major city in the Midwest. This was before the internet, so imagine being the Bud guy whose job it was to change kegs and serve beer, while wearing that ridiculous hat and shirt. As the festivals drew to a close, we'd give out beer for free to finish off a keg. It always morphed into concert mentality. Women would do almost anything for that hat or shirt. Side note, cops would always flock at the end of their shift to swing by for free beer. On a few occasions, they'd give me their business card with a "let 'em go if pulled over" signature on the back. I still have 2 of them, and I know they'd never do that today. Story 23. When I was hospitalized for pneumonia, most of the nurses were some of the handsomest men I'd ever seen. Too bad I had pneumonia and felt too gross to flirt. Story 24. A pilot. Them and flight attendants have lots of sex. When you're traveling a lot and working with lots of well-dressed coworkers, lots of lust occurs. You get free hotel accommodations, and those are used well in one-night stands before flying out on your next rotation. So lots of sex happens with those 2 jobs. Be a bit good-looking and choose either pilot or flight attendant. Story 25. I know a few lawyers that got laid a lot during their younger years. Of course, one was movie star handsome, but the other one was quite nerdy before law school and transformed into a total stud afterwards. I can't give all the credit to his passing the bar, but I'm sure it played a role. Story 26. I work for a learning toy company, and my wife doesn't tell the other moms what I do because they all of a sudden have one hell of an interest in me at parties/birthdays. Story 27. My dad was in the Navy, and he said that pulling into Australia meant that even the ugliest virgin on board would get laid.